Welcome to Future Gwai. I am Umlilo, Gwai Diva of the Universe. And today's a very exciting episode because I'm going to show you how I created a movie trailer around the story of Cecil the Lion using Google VEO3 and ChatGPT. But first, roll the intro.
I'm the spark in the night, you're just ones and zeros. I'm the future, I'm the tech, I'm the AI dream. You're the past, you're the flesh, just a fading gleam. Got precision, got the speed, I'm the upgrade you need. I'm just sweat and heartbeat, I'm the next gen.
Now, for those of you who don't know the story of Cecil the Lion, it's something that happened about 10 years ago, and Cecil was this iconic lion that ruled the plains of Hwange game farm in Zimbabwe, and his story made headlines all over the world after he was killed by a trophy hunter, an American dentist. And this story kind of rocked the news world, and it kind of brought this conversation of conservation back into the fold. Now, a lot of tourists come to Africa to hunt animals and pay a lot of money to hunt these animals. And in the last couple of weeks, we've had a few stories where a buffalo actually killed an American trophy hunter. And then we also had a story where another lion was recently killed, and it also made news headlines. So it felt like the perfect time to kind of revisit the story. It's a project that I'd been working on for a while, but couldn't quite get it off the ground. But now with technology like Google VEO3, I was able to make a trailer and actually bring it to life. And I'm going to show you my process.
He was not just our king, he was our voice.
Zephyr. On the night of 1 July 2015, my husband was lured out of the protected area. My husband was killed by an American hunter with no remorse, and we demand justice.
Now, first up is the concept. You can't just make me a lion trailer on ChatGPT and expect to have amazing results. You can't have like a Disney level Lion King story without a little bit of prompt engineering. And the storyline for me was blending news, was blending protest, was blending all of these ideas around conservation and also the conversation around trophy hunters and tourism in Southern Africa that obviously a lot of countries rely on and depend on. But I also wanted to tell the story through the animals' perspective. We've got the big five in South Africa, in Southern Africa, and I wanted to kind of bring the story to life by looking at it from that perspective, from all these different perspectives. How do I take the story that you can tell from all these different angles and bring it together in a trailer? And I wanted it to start from a funeral procession, very dramatic, how I would imagine animals giving a funeral, a state funeral almost, to a king, the king of the jungle. So it begins with almost like a flashback image of Cecil being buried, and you have all of these animals around, but you also have some people from the local community coming and attending this funeral. We have song, we have a kind of procession. And so this was my idea in order to develop this trailer. So first thing I did was go to ChatGPT and try and finesse the story a little bit more. So the first thing that I did was try and put together what the overall message would be. So together with ChatGPT, we kind of finessed this idea a little bit more and fleshed it out a little bit more to see who would be our main characters. Definitely wanted to have a news bulletin with breaking news, another lion killed, for dramatic effect. I wanted the funeral procession. I wanted the really emotional, dramatic moment where you see Cecil's wife crying and addressing the other animals and wanting justice for Cecil. So we're taking a very political angle with the story to kind of bring it to life. Now, the second thing I wanted to do was to kind of have these flashback moments of Cecil and Blondie, who was the latest lion who was killed, to kind of connect the two. And in my story, Cecil is actually Blondie's dad. And so we see how history repeats itself. 10 years ago, we had Cecil being shot by a trophy hunter. And now we have his son being shot by a trophy hunter, and the animals have had enough. So then the scene that really kind of brings it together is when people from the local village, from the local community, also start joining in on this protest and being like, enough is enough. We are done with our animals being hunted and killed for sport. And so it erupts in these protests across the country where people are protesting in front of the US consulate office. And you have this kind of dramatic scene starting to build. See where I'm going with this? So step 2 in this whole process is the prompt engineering. Now that we've worked out our storyline and what we want to tell, we have to kind of figure out the cinematography, the characters, and how we're going to construct these prompts in order to really get the picture that we want. I knew that I definitely wanted lions speaking, almost like in a live action kind of way. And I wanted to kind of direct ChatGPT, almost like Steven Spielberg, and help the ChatGPT kind of finesse the story and develop the story so that we could figure out what scenes did we actually want. So this is where the magic really happens. You go on to VEO3 and you do get a trial version that you can trial for a month. And that's basically what I use. So I didn't have to pay to actually use it. You only get 3 usages, videos a day, but that's pretty good because then you can kind of work your story each day. You can change your mind. And I think it's really cool that Google has let people actually try it out before you buy. So you don't just type in on Google VEO3, I want to make a lion movie, make me a lion movie. No, that would not work. So you kind of want to direct it like you are a film director. And the biggest thing is that you want your opening establishing shots. You want your close-ups. You need to work out how your story is going to develop. So I wanted an opening shot of the Hwange National Park where you see the sunrise and you see this kind of aerial drone view of the savannah kind of sweeping through, and it really establishes where we are and I guess what part of history we are at. So it's very modern day, but it's still in the wild. It's still the savannah. It's beautiful. And the savannah is really beautiful during sunrise and sunset. So I definitely knew that I wanted to do those kinds of scenes to kind of open it up. And then boom, VEO3 kind of gives you your opening scene. Now, I would advise that you go through ChatGPT and you start making a scene list, which we will work through in the next step. So basically, once you have established your different scenes, you ask ChatGPT to kind of write prompts for each of those scenes. And if you want to have something cinematic, I would suggest you put in a prompt where you say something like, this is a cinematic movie trailer, the likes of Lion King, think Disney. So you're helping the AI kind of understand what kind of visual language you are aiming for so that it makes your prompts easier. Now, once you've got that worked out, then you can get ChatGPT to work out all the different prompts of all your different shots. So we had about 6 shots on average. I made about 10 so that I could choose between which shots I wanted to do. And I kind of developed the story as news was actually breaking about the buffalo. So now I'm going to give you some of the examples of some of the prompts that I managed to engineer with ChatGPT to give me these cinematic scenes that I really wanted. So the first scene was of the grasslands of Savannah. And once I developed that scene, I wanted to kind of create the funeral procession. So we engineered this prompt close up of a majestic lioness with golden eyes, glistening with tears, standing on a sunlit rock above a gathering of silent animals in the African savannah. Now, if you want my prompt list, you can download it on my website on futureguy.com and follow some of the instructions on how to create really great prompts. And I'll definitely be making more on how to work with ChatGPT in creating those prompts as well. Once you have your prompts together, then you can use the week, depending on how long you want, to kind of start finessing and creating your trailer or short film. I would suggest an app like LTX Studio, which is really amazing for developing storylines. It's really amazing for creating scripts for your storylines and storyboarding. So that's an app that I use a lot. I didn't use it specifically for this project, but it's something that I would definitely suggest if you're looking into filmmaking and creating your own stories. The most exciting part for me is once you've got all of your scenes kind of worked out, it's almost like a puzzle piece that you can start putting together to figure out where does each piece fall into the story and what is best to tell the story. And VEO3 spits out all these clips like a digital wildlife photographer, and it never gets tired. So I'll download each scene and import them into an editing software. I use CapCut, and you can use whatever software you feel comfortable with. And then you kind of line them up according to the script, almost like building this puzzle, except the pieces roar at you. Now, what's a trailer without drama? You know, I record a news anchor voice. Breaking news today, another lion, Blondie, has been killed. Now, this is one of the things that I didn't touch on earlier, is that Google VEO3 has audio. So if you want dialogue or audio in the scene, what I usually do is actually script it like how you would any other normal film. Is basically put your character's name, describe the scene first, put your character's name, and in inverted commas, then you add the speech that you want Google VEO3 to do. I would suggest that you keep the speech within the limit of 3 to 5 seconds so that you don't go over, because it does cut your dialogue if your dialogue is too long. So if you're happy with how your trailer is looking and you don't want to add a voiceover like I didn't, I felt like the story could tell itself. So I didn't add a voiceover, and I decided to use the audio that was generated on VEO3 and put that all together in a very beautiful sequence. Now, step 5 is really where the editing flair comes in, and that's where you can really play around with lighting, you can play around with grading, you can play around with all sorts of different effects if you really want to kind of create that high-tech movie feel. But I wanted to keep it quite simple and let the story kind of tell itself. So I stuck to very chilled transitions, and I didn't do anything crazy. Now, step 6 is like the final touch. What is your final scene, and what would bring viewers really into the story? And I remembered a scene from Lion King actually with Simba and Mufasa talking about Simba owning this land one day, and I kind of wanted to do a nod back to Lion King by showing Cecil and Blondie kind of having this dad-son moment as kind of the end, because I didn't want to end it with like the tragic news. So it kind of began with the tragic news and ends with this kind of story that tells you, you know, there's legacy, there's family, and it kind of brings these themes together. So that was kind of the last step of like bringing it all together. So now this is where the fun really begins. I'm excited to actually share this film with you, and let me know what you think in the comments. Subscribe if you want more of this type of content of me trying out all these different apps and letting you know my process. And click the like button if this video actually made sense to you and helped you in understanding how to use VEO3 or any other kind of storytelling mechanisms that we discussed. And here's the story of Cecil and Blondie. Till next time, I'll see you soon. Stay quiet and stay creative.
He was not just our king, he was our voice.
Cecil. On the night of 1 July 2015, my husband was lured out of the protected area. My husband was killed by an American hunter. with no remorse, and we demand justice.
Errands. Walter Palmer, an American citizen, paid $50,000 to lure and kill our beloved Cecil.
Breaking news today, another lion, Blondie, has been killed by an American trophy hunter, sparking international outrage. Paul Chivembe has the details.
Just a decade after the world mourned Cecil the Lion, another tragedy unfolds. Blondie, one of Cecil's sons, has been killed by an American dentist.
Once again, the savannah mourns, and the world must ask, how many kings must fall before justice is served?
They didn't just kill our king, they shattered balance. And now, blood must answer blood.
Here you are, you're gonna be my trophy today. What the?
One day, all of this land will be yours, my son.
All of it? Mine? Come on!